Hello, everybody, and welcome to Heartlight Vedic Astrology. And today's talk, I was going to talk about Swagrahas, as it's known as in Sanskrit. And a Swagraha is a planet that's in its own sign or star. And this talk is going to be from a Vedic astrology or Jyotish perspective, so keep that in mind. If you're new to Vedic astrology, Jyotish are my videos. All of my teaching videos on the subject of Vedic astrology are in my concepts playlist. They can all be found there. And wherever you see a dual asterisk in one of my talks, that means I have a teaching video on that topic. Um, Also, if you'd like to learn astrology by looking at birth charts, I've analyzed a bunch of famous birth charts on the channel. And to find them, you can look at my birth chart archive list 2024 video where I list all the charts I've analyzed and the videos you can find them in because it's not always obvious from the titles of videos. Like I tend to look at analyze 3 charts each month in my monthly videos, but you wouldn't know from the title. So videos to watch along with this one, before this one, to get more out of this talk. North, South, and East Indian style charts. I do cover Western style charts in that talk. Introduction to navigating a birth chart, introduction to the constellations or Rashis, constellation or Rashi categories, and then nakshatras or lunar mansions. All right. Okay, so let's start off just talking about what is a swagraha. What does that mean? Well, swa in Sanskrit means own or self or natural, and graha means planet. So there are two ways basically to get a swagraha. So when a planet is in its own sign or Rashi, as it's known as in Sanskrit, or when a graha planet is in its own star or Tara, as it's known as in Sanskrit. Okay. So what happens? Like, why does that matter? So when a planet is in its own sign or in its own star, what that means is kind of like being at home. So it's very comfortable there. It can be very relaxed there. It's not inhibited there by other people's rules or preferences or whatever. So this makes a planet strong, being in its own sign or in its own star, because again, it's in its own, it's in its own wheelhouse. So yeah. So let's start with planets in their own sign, just as mostly a reminder. A lot of this information on uh, planets and the sign that they own is in my um, one of my other videos, constellation categories. But let's go through. So let's start on the left here with the written part, and then we'll look at the chart because essentially they're the same information, just in a visual form or written, list form. So what I've listed here are the 12 constellations. So starting at Aries, number 1, and then Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, and then I have the Sanskrit too. So Aries, Mesha, Taurus, Vrishabha, Gemini, Mithuna, Cancer, Karka, Leo, Simha, Virgo, Kanya, Libra, Tula, Scorpio, Vrishika, Sagittarius, Danu, Capricorn, Makara, Aquarius, Kumbh, Pisces, Mina. Okay, so the 12 constellations in order. And the planets that rule or own those houses. So Aries is ruled by Mars, Taurus is ruled by Venus, Gemini ruled by Mercury, and you can read the list going down. Okay. And again, this should be mostly a reminder if you've seen my other constellation categories video. Now, also as a reminder, K2 is considered to be also an owner of Aries or ruler of Aries, but I typically only use that when we look at the amshas or subzodiacs. Okay, and also in parentheses, you see down at Aquarius, Saturn is the ruling planet for Aquarius or Kumbh, but Rahu is used also as an owner or ruler of Aquarius, again, when we're looking at the amshas. Okay, so keep that in mind. Just so you don't forget, but again, we're not really going to use Rahu and Ketu here. Um, again, you would only use that if you were analyzing the subzodiacs. Okay. So basically, if you look on the right, this chart here is a natural zodiac. So what that means is I've put the first constellation of Aries or Mesha in the first house. So this is a North Indian style chart. And to get to the first house, you go to that top diamond in the middle. It happens to have a 1 in the bottom corner. That 1 does not mean first house. That 1 means the first constellation of Aries or Mesha is in the first house. Okay. So if you had a natural zodiac, chart that you were looking at, this is if you had these particular planets land in these constellations, then you would have a swagraha because it was a planet in its own house. So if we look at the top and go around, we have Mars in the first constellation of Aries, and Mars owns Aries. So that would be a swa Mars. If we go to the second house, which in a North Indian style chart, you go up and back counterclockwise, where that little two is in the bottom corner, that's the second house, but the two refers to the second constellation of Taurus. So Venus owns Taurus. So when you have Venus and Taurus, you get a swagraha. Okay, then going on, okay, the third constellation of Gemini is ruled by Mercury. And in this chart, we have Mercury in Gemini. So Mercury is swa. Okay. And you can go around and do the rest and say it out loud. That helps you practice and remember it. Okay. So again, when you get a planet in its own house that it owns, you get strength for that planet. All right. So then moving on to the other part. So what about planets in their own star or Tara? Well, how do you know which star or Tara a planet is in? Now, this is more complicated. Most people, if they've done some astrology, they'll know the constellations and the ruling planets. But unless they start getting deeper into Vedic astrology, they may not know this information. So the thing is, the first thing to know, if you're not familiar, is that there are 27 nakshatras, and a nakshatra is a lunar mansion. Okay, so a lunar mansion, every night the moon moves through a different nakshatra. So after 27 nights, you get a lunar month. Okay, now each nakshatra is ruled by a planet as well. Okay, now that doesn't necessarily correspond with the Rashi, the constellation planet ownership. Okay, but we'll start integrating these two here. Okay. Now the sequence of star rulership follows the dasha or planetary period sequence. So a dasha is a planetary period, and those are the planetary periods that we're all moving through, and they go in a certain order. Mhm. Now, if you don't know, the dasha or planetary period sequence is Ketu, then Venus, then Sun, then Moon, then Mars, then Rahu, then Jupiter, then Saturn, then Mercury. So there's 9 of these planetary periods because there's 9 planets. Okay. So now, if we look at this kind of pie chart on the right here, okay, let me orient you first, and then we'll start getting into the details here. You can see the 3 big blue lines, kind of looks like a peace sign here. So again, there's 12 constellations. Okay, so if we divide the sky or we divide the zodiac into 3 parts here, each one will start with a new constellation. And each one happens to be a fire sign. So again, if you're not familiar with fire signs and water signs and all this sort of thing, you might check out my constellation categories video. Okay. Well, let's just start at the top here. So again, we're starting at the very tippy top with Aries or Mesha constellation. And also, whenever you start a new fire sign, you will start a new nakshatra at the same time. Okay, so only when you started a new fire sign will you also start a nakshatra at the same time. Okay, now there are 3 places in the zodiac where this happens. Okay, so the start of Aries or Mesha, which is a fire sign. Then you go through, and then when you get to Leo or Simha, that's another fire sign. And when you start Leo's constellation, you also simultaneously start Maga Nakshatra. It's another nakshatra. Okay. Then if you keep going up and around, this third, kind of arrow here on the blue line, this is the start of Sagittarius or Danu. And this is where you also simultaneously start Mula Nakshatra. Okay, so the beginning of fire signs are really important as a way to, again, help you remember so that you can eyeball this. You can always look it up on your software, that's fine. But if you're doing, chart readings on the fly, then, it's helpful to be able to figure it out as you go. It's faster typically. All right. So again, you need to know the Dashasukas. Now, let's get started here. Okay, now we're going to start at the top again. Aries, Mesha, and Ashwini. Okay. So you can see in between Aries, the start of Aries and the start of Leo, I've sliced and diced up the pie a little bit smaller. Okay, so from the blue line of the start of Aries to the blue line of the start of Simha, you can see there are 3 green lines in here. Now, the green lines designate, the beginning and end of a constellation. So, from the blue line to the first green line is Aries. From the first green line to the second green line is Taurus. From the second green line to the third green line is Gemini. And then from the third green line to the next blue line is Cancer. Okay. So, in this first third of the, again, sky, zodiac, whatever you want to, however you want to think about it, we've got 4 constellations here. Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, the first 4. Now, I didn't fill in the rest of the chart. That would actually be a good exercise after I'm done talking here for you to go through and do this yourself so that you get the hang of this on your own. Okay. But, okay, and each constellation, just as a reminder, is 30 degrees. Okay. So 30 times 4 was 120. 120 times 3, that's 360. That's 360 degrees in the sky. Okay. Now, the thing is, now we're starting to overlap because we have an exact overlap of Aries and Ashwini here. If you look at that first little kind of compartment, ASH stands for Ashwini and KE stands for K2. Okay, now K2, again, if you look at your Dasha sequence here, planetary period sequence, starts with K2. Okay, and that's the first nakshatra. Okay, now within Aries, you're going to have about 2, for each constellation, you're going to have about 2.7 or 2.6 nakshatras. So some nakshatras are going to split over a constellation. So we have a full Ashwini here, and the rule of Ashwini is Ketu. The next nakshatra is fully in Aries, that's Bharani, and that's ruled by Venus, right? Because Venus comes after Ketu in the Dasha sequence here. Then the next nakshatra is split. So part of it's in Aries and part of it's in Taurus. So that's why the green line, it's kind of splitting in between the 2 pink lines here. Either way, so Kritika is there, the third nakshatra, and Kritika is ruled by Sun. Okay, then if you go fully into Taurus, so some of Kritika will be in Taurus, some of it will be in Aries. But then the next full nakshatra is Rohini, that's fully in Taurus, and Rohini is ruled by the moon. So again, Ketu, Venus, Sun, Moon. We're following the Dasha sequence with the nakshatras. Then after Rohini, we start Mrigashirsha. Half of Mrigashirsha is in Taurus and half of it's in Gemini. So Mrigashirsha, straddles these 2 constellations. Mrigashirsha is ruled by Mars. Okay. Then if we go fully into Gemini, the next constellation is Ardra. Ardra is ruled by Rahu because Rahu follows Mars in the Dasha sequence. Then the next nakshatra split, part of it's in Gemini, part of it's Cancer, Punarvasu, that's ruled by Jupiter. Then the next nakshatra, it's fully in Cancer, called Pusha, that's ruled by Saturn. And then the very last nakshatra in Cancer is Ashlesha, and Ashlesha is ruled by Mercury. Now, just like K2 is always going to be the first star or nakshatra, ruling planet for a nakshatra in the beginning of a fire sign. So Ketu is always first in a fire sign. The opposite is also true. Mercury is always last in a water sign. So if you know where, the beginning, if you know your fire and water signs, then you can actually, this can help you. It's like, oh, I'm in the beginning of a fire sign. What's a fire sign? A Sagittarius, for example. Oh, the first nakshatra in Sagittarius is Mula. It is also ruled by Ketu. So you can, quickly do it in your head. And then what else could we do? So what's another water sign? Well, another water sign would be Scorpio. What's the last nakshatra in Scorpio? It's going to be Jyeshta. Jyeshta is also ruled by Mercury because it's the last nakshatra in a water sign. Okay. So now again, if you get, for example, the moon in Rohini, you will have a Swagraha because the moon is in its own star because Rohini is ruled by the moon. Or similarly, let's say you have Jupiter and Punarvasu. Jupiter is in its own star because Jupiter rules Punarvasu. So even though Jupiter's not in Sagittarius or Pisces, the two, what is it, the constellations that it rules, being in Punarvasu will still make it Swa. Okay. So there you go. I think, yeah. So as I said, I think it would be a really good exercise if you're really interested in learning this to fill in the rest of the circle so that, again, if you get this sequence down, planetary dasha sequence down, backwards and forwards, and you know where your fire signs are and you know where your water signs are, you can basically make your way to the middle here because, again, every fire sign will start with the star of Ketu and every water sign will end with the star of Mercury. All right, so there you go. And again, swamp planets are very, very important. I mean, they're like one of the main primary strength positions for planets. So keep that in mind. All right. All right. So as always, thanks for stopping by, listening to one of my talks. All of my teaching videos on the subject of Vedic astrology are my concepts playlist. They can be found there. And for more famous birth charts, famous people, famous places, famous moments in time, I would check out my birth chart archive list 2024 for a list of all the ones I've analyzed on the channel. I do offer personal birth chart readings if that's of interest. I do those live on Zoom and as pre-recorded video, either way. And if you're interested in that, you can email heartlightastro@yahoo.com for more info. I do have another YouTube channel on natural medicine, and the name of that channel is Nature Source Care. And on that channel, I talk about Ayurveda, traditional Indian medicine, some other Vedic art, yoga, and then other paradigms of natural medicine like homeopathy and naturopathic medicine. So that's all out there too, if that's interesting to you. So again, thanks in all the ways that you guys support my work in the channel, subscribing, liking, commenting, telling me where you're from. That's always really cool. Donations you guys send in. So all of it's very much appreciated. So thank you for all of that. All right. So as always, I hope you found this helpful, useful, and interesting to you as you learn to navigate the energy cycles of your own life. All right. So take care. And until the next one, namaste.